Hello, welcome to another episode of the Armchair League. I am Novasight.
I am AspariOne.
A little bit of information about the show is that we like to explain 5 different topics, which is mechanics, behavior, community, stuff having to do with the game itself, and the meta. And we go into detail in these topics for a good portion of time.
We'll be expounding on specific topics. The detail we'll be going into is majority personal opinions as well as backed up sort of factual stuff that we find on the internet. But majority of the time I would suggest taking with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, look up these things yourself too, but we'll try and give you the correct information, and we'll also have personal opinions brought into a lot of things. This week's episode, our 5 topics for this week are positioning for mechanics, repetition for behavior, everyone's favorite streamer girl, KaceyTron, for the community, Summer's Rift update, which this is going to be a few parts, I don't know how many yet, and niche picks for the meta. Our first topic is positioning and mechanics. So basically, every role you play, there's a certain position you have to be in depending on what champion you're playing, what role it is, what the situation is on the map. This is one of the harder things to put into words, rather than just learning it through action, but there's still a kind of a general guideline to what you should be doing.
For the most part, the only way I could put it personally into words is positioning as where should you be at any moment. That'd be in lane, where should you be if somebody's harassing you, where should you be if you're CSing, where should you be if your support is warding, where should you be in a team fight. That's the general understanding of what positioning is. The overview entirely of it is where should you be. And that's generally what makes positioning actually quite effective in team fights and fights alone, is because depending on where you are on a fight will dictate generally how the outcome of the battle will go. And that's a big thing, considering team fights are almost win or loss in some cases. That being said, you get the specific areas of what roles go in what positions, such as tanks being the frontliners, whereas the damage dealers being like the AP carry or the AD carry being the back line. You get your bruisers, which is generally top lane, being around the middle or front line. You get your supports that are kind of, well, they tend to be dangling around the mid and back line, just peeling what they can or initiating stuff and immediately retreating to where they need to be. But positioning in itself is a very useful tool, especially if you know what you're supposed to be doing. That kind of awareness just comes in time, but it's something that's very much invaluable.
Yeah, so it's all about where. Now, think of the word team fight, first of all. It's a team fight, so you expect there to be a team there. Or, 2 teams fighting each other. So, what is going on when, let's say for example, you have the top laner who's a tank, mid laner who's an assassin, the jungler who's a bruiser, the support who's some kind of squishy shield, I don't know, someone who gives shields, and you have AD carry with a decent amount of range. So, in what world does it make any sense that the AD carry is in front of everyone? In what world does it make sense that the assassin is starting the fight? And, this stuff happens a lot, unfortunately. People are in the wrong spot at the wrong time, and it does end up costing their team. Or, even better, you have you have your team that's together, except there's one person off on the side, like really far away, because they want to try and flank them or something. And then, before they can even finish flanking them, the team gets slaughtered. That's just wrong.
So as far as positioning goes, you kind of understand what you need in a team fight specifically, and as he was talking about in a team aspect, positioning is generally everything that dictates your win. And there's strategies that revolve around positioning, such as movements and how you're supposed to operate as a team. That's mostly teams 5v5 stuff. You're lucky if you get anything like that in solo queue. But generally, your position will definitely help when it comes to winning majority of your games, actually. And it's something that's often overlooked, I've noticed, especially in the lower tiers, or just flat out not known its existence, especially when people tend to get fed, for example. They decide to push in on there and be like the first one in, like the Vayne face checking the bush while their tank is like trailing behind them. That's not a good tactic, and that's not good positioning placement. That being said, you gotta keep in mind whereabouts you are in the team fights. If you're getting shredded down real fast because you are the first one in, then you're basically doing it wrong. If you're a carry. If you're a tank, generally positioning, you're up in the front, so you would want to be the initiator. But that's more so dabbling in tactics as well as what you're supposed to do in team fights, who does what. But think of it this way. A fight is happening, you're about to get jumped on by the enemy team. Your team is right near you. The one who's on the front line right now is Garen. The other one who's near you is Leona. And you, for example, are Ahri. You have a Caitlyn in the back line, and your jungler, for example, Lee Sin, is kind of off to the side. Caitlyn, for some reason, is moved up to the front and starts trying to pick at the entire enemy team by poking them with auto attacks. The enemy team jumps at you guys, immediately bursts her down, goes through your tanks, kills them off, then you, or toggles off of them, then to kill you, then shreds your enemy team down and shreds your team down, and ends up getting a full 5-man kill. While their positioning may not have been the best on their end, the fact that somebody got caught out in the front dictated your loss, which means your positioning, or at least Caitlyn's positioning in this scenario, was entirely wrong, because the AD carry should not be in the front. Now, there's some instances where I understand where people kind of get angry and say, no, you should be targeting this person, you should be targeting this person, or target the AD carry, or what have you. But in general positioning, this goes on to a broader topic, but I'm going to poke at this a little bit. Positioning for an AD carry, just from my perspective, would be in the back line attacking the closest thing to you. Now, I'm not meaning if there's a tank and the other AD carry is right beside the tank that you should be attacking the tank. No. You could attack the AD carry given you have the distance and capability of remaining in the back line. But if your team is kind of pushing it at them, one of your team members is basically in the middle of them, getting their attention, while the 3 of you, or 4 of you, are working on the tank, keeping that tank down, your target is the tank. And a lot of people will say, no, you shouldn't be targeting the tank. You shouldn't be focusing the tank, that's true. Your whole team shouldn't be wasting their entire spells and skills on the tank itself. But you, as the AD carry, should be targeting, as I said, the closest thing to you, and that's what positioning entails. As far as the mid laner, or assassin, or AP carry, that one's a little out of my field, and that positioning is a bit different, considering what they do and how they do. But from an AD carry standpoint, backline is definitely where you should be, and definitely where you should stay. That way you can continue your damage per second throughout the team fight, and have consistent damage on the enemy team. Because if you're dead at the start of the team fight, there goes your damage. So entirely, your team will get wiped, and that will cause you maybe a couple towers or an inhib, or could cost you the game itself. So to be mindful of your positioning is detrimental to winning games. And that's where decision making comes into play. That's why you kind of look at how a lot of players end up getting very much better than each other, is because of that decision making. a lot of the time when it comes to mechanics, skill level kind of divvies off high platinum, diamonds, as well as challenger. Sure, they're really good, but the decisions they make that act on those mechanics of theirs allows them to be successful, when in reality they're really not that much better than another diamond player, but how they position is definitely different than how a silver player, for example, would carry about. So if you keep mind of your position as well as what you're supposed to be doing in the team fight, considering that goes hand in hand, you'll have a lot more successful team fights in general.
Yeah, so there's kind of a it always depends on champions, what you do, like where you position yourself in team fights. But there's also a general idea where you should be. Like if you're the AD carry, you want to be somewhere between the two tankiest people, where you can always be in reach of someone who can peel for you. It's not always particularly, like, it is part of their job to peel for you, some tanky champs, but it's also your job to be close enough for them to peel for you. If you're off on fucking Mars trying to kill someone, away from the rest of the team, and you're like, where's the peel? Where's the peel? Are you serious? No one's fucking near you. Wake up. Open your eyes. And that being said, like, as I was saying, the general idea is to be near someone that can peel for you. So, be near a support with lots of disengage, be near a tank with lots of CC, whatever. Just don't go off from everyone else and then expect them to save you when it takes them, I don't know, 5 to 20 seconds to actually get to your position. Because in that time, they're dead or you're already dead. And that's just an AD carry, for example. As a jungler, it depends on who you're playing as well. You can be front line, you can be someone who is kind of mid-line and CCs people and then drags them in. You can be, well, you could be backline peeling for the AD carry, I suppose. And that's kind of the effects of top lane as well. You can be any of those. And then support, it honestly depends on what the rest of your team is too. Like you can pick something like Braum or Leona and be someone who starts the engage and then sticks with your AD carry to peel for them, or starts the engage and hope someone else's peels for the AD carry. But most team fights are very centric around one or two people that are doing the damage, that need the safety, and that's what you gotta be thinking about anytime you fight. And for the first time ever in this show, at least on the YouTube thing, I'll have a little diagram of an idea of some kind of positioning and what's going to happen if, depending on where you went. Like I have on this diagram here, there's the X side, which I guess is blue sides, or the bottom side of my picture, and it shows the AD carry pretty much veering off to the right of everyone, and then getting killed by the backline, getting killed by their assassin, basically, the purple side assassin. And then it shows the tank trying to go to help him and getting killed by the purple side AD carry because he's too busy trying to help his current AD carry who's too far away now. And it will show a jungler who's got CC'd because he decided to actually go right into the enemy team with basically no one else backing him up. And so on and so forth. But anyways, knowing where to be at any given time is very important for the team. It's probably one of the biggest things to learn in solo queue, simply because it's not always going to work in such a way. Like, you can't control everyone's positioning. You're not playing StarCraft. You can't control all 5 champions. Although, sometimes I feel like that would be a nice thing. But no, they're all individual players on every champion, so everyone needs to know where they should be, and that's not always going to be the case. So then you have to do your own personal best to be in the right place. Because even if it's not the most optimal situation, you're going to still try and make the best of it.
Yeah, so in general, when it comes to positioning, it gets detrimental to your team fight and how successful you may be. And the more you pay attention to your team fight, I guarantee you the more successful your team fights will be. Because that's definitely one aspect of the game that a lot of people overlook, especially in silver and in bronze. Especially in bronze. If you have a handle on your positioning and you're stuck in bronze, you'll very easily climb out. Silver, it'll be a bit harder, it will be a challenge, but very much so will it help you on many aspects.
Well, that's pretty much all there is to positioning at the most basic form. Like I said, like both of us said, you have to know based on what champions are in your game, what your role is, and all that. So I could go into fine details, and I'm probably going to start doing some YouTube videos where I explain basically team fights and what's going wrong because of this or that, and positioning being part of it. From, watching various players. So I'll do that one of these days on my own personal YouTube. Actually, that might be part of our Nerves Concord YouTube. Anyways, I'll figure it out. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to mechanics and positioning at the most basic level. Okay, so for our next topic is repetition, which is our behavior topic this week. So, in some senses, League of Legends has a lot of repetitive tasks built into it that you need to actually do to be successful. And in order to even learn these things, you have to repeat them. You have to basically learn to repeat them by repeating them. And it's a really weird way of putting it, but you basically got to hammer some of this information to your skulls repeatedly until you just do it, without even thinking about it. And then you can concentrate on the next important task that you have to start repeating. So repetition is one of the most fundamental ways of learning the game. That involves things like CSing, which is killing the creeps, like minions, jungle creeps, blah blah blah. That's a very repetitive task, but there's always all this fine-tuning about it too, where you have to know how much damage you're doing, how much health those things have, and how easily you can do it safely without getting yourself killed. So there's a lot of repetition in it, but there's always also little fine details that affect it. And that actually pretty much goes for a lot of things in the game.
Majority of the game itself, as you said, is repetition. Your mechanics that you get from repetition. Your strategies you get from repetition. Your positioning, as we said before, you get from repetition. Your awareness you get from repetition. The more you understand, the more you do. But in general, it's more so just a learning aspect of really anything, to be honest. So you apply that to this game. It's a lot of repetition and a lot of learning, but that's just the mechanics of the game. There's a lot of learning to happen within this. And to understand what you should be repeating and what you should be learning definitely helps. That sort of awareness that you gotta keep in mind. Because if you're not aware of what you should be repeating and what you should be learning, you're not gonna really absorb any of that. You're gonna stay basically as is, as you are. Or progress, but very slowly. And it's kind of a funny thing. Awareness is very much a broad topic on really anything to do with advancing or excelling at anything. But the more you understand that you need to keep practicing and keep trying, the better you will actually absorb the information you need in order to obtain the skills you are hoping for or attempting to achieve. That being said, repetition is key. much like anything else there is. Try and learn a guitar. It's repetition. Try and get good at a non-e-sport. That's repetition. Same with getting good at esports as well. That's repetition. Anything you do to learn is, in general, repetition. So the more you are aware of what you need to repeat, as I said, the easier it will be for you to actually absorb the information.
Yeah, it's just like item builds in League. There's certain item builds you have to go through, and sometimes you have to change it up depending on who you're against or what the situation is. But at the most basic idea, you have to have a idea of what you're doing really fast so you can just purchase the item and have it done. And that requires repetition, like, I need to buy this, this, and this. And you gotta think about that every round. Because, like, oh, I bought this, this, and then this thing which was wrong, then you screwed yourself over a bit. And that applies to stuff like that. And a good example is actually something that Dyrus once said. He would have to play hundreds of games on a single champion in order to master it, whereas if you just play it once or twice, you might have some very basic knowledge of how the champion works, but first of all, you don't know every matchup with the champion, because in 1 or 2 games, you're only going against 1 or 2 different champions, and that doesn't help you, because next time you bring it out in ranked, you're going to be against something completely different, and you won't be ready for it. So repeating the same champions over and over will have a effect. Like, I know every single matchup now. For example, I have, besides AD carry and support, I have one champion for... No, that's not true. I have 2 champions for every other lane. Like, I have... Except jungle. I only have 1 jungler. So, I have 2 champions for top. I have 2 champions for mid. I have 1 jungler. And those are the only champions I play, and the only champions I will play in those roles. And since I've played them so many times, I know all these little tricks that people who only played them maybe a couple times wouldn't know. I also know a lot more matchups, and that's a very important thing.
So in general, repetition is something that is required in order for any learning curve to be successful. If you maintain repetition, and you maintain the learning curve that you're going for, the better it'll be for you.
When I first started the game, I sucked shit so bad at CSing, like, it was unreal. But I did it so many times, and I tried my hardest to learn how to do it. And it became more natural for me to do. But even now, I still can't do it 100% perfectly. I can't hit every single minion every time, no matter what. So I still have a long ways to go there. But I'm a lot better than when I started. I'm not at 50 CS 20 minutes in the game. Wait, yeah. I'm not at 50 CS 20 minutes in the game, which is terrible. But I could use our next topic, KaceyTron, as an example for this. She can go 20 minutes in the game and only have like 65 or 70 CS, or even less than that, depending on what champion she's playing. That's because she hasn't played the game enough times to understand that you have to know how much damage you do and when to do the damage, and you need to know the attack animations of the champion, because they're all different. They all have some kind of quirk to them that makes it harder to last hit. That's like why people do the Vlad challenge, where they try and last hit as many minions as they can in 20 minutes, like by themselves playing Vlad. They'll only use his auto attacks, and they're pretty damn weak, and the animations are really crude, at least on the basic Vlad skin. So, it's a challenge, but you gotta have some idea of when to do said action. Only learn through repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Anything to add to that?
Nothing I can think of. Basically, we're exercising repetition by repeating ourselves. Yeah.
Well, clearly.
As far as it goes, yeah, I don't have anything else that I could add to that.
Alright, fair
It's
enough.
kind of just working off of fumes in general.
Alright, so our next topic is our community topic, and it's about a streamer named KaceyTron. Now, there's very mixed feelings about her. Alright, I need to basically explain what she does. So, she's this Twitch streamer that basically, at the most basic level, if you didn't understand anything else about her, is a girl who shows off her cleavage, kinda, anytime someone says something misogynistic or mean or just making fun of her gameplay, because she is a bronze 5 player. Anyways, anyone who does that, she'll like pretty much fight back with them or outright deny that she's making a mistake. And that's the most basic idea of what she is. But she's a self-proclaimed league professional player, like, and in a way she's not wrong about that, because she is a professional. She professionally, she's pretty much a comedian. That's all I can say. But, yeah, she's a pretty interesting person.
She's an interesting person, but to immediately say something, I'd almost give away what exactly she is. It's kind of busts the whole thing. I don't really know what to say about her without giving her away, to be honest.
Okay, well, how about this? Their About Me page says, or her About Me section on her Twitch stream says this: I am arguably one of the best, if not the best female LOL player. I have proven time and time again I can compete against the best. I have been gaming my entire life and am a real girl gamer who takes myself very seriously. I'm extremely into Adventure Time, anime, video gaming, comic books, and all-around nerd culture. I am a nerd at heart. I am actually very intelligent despite what Reddit and 4chan would have you think. So, KaceyTron receives a lot of hate in her Twitch stream, and people basically donate money to shit talk her. And some donate a pretty damn good chunk of money to shit talk her. But that's not the only people who donate. So, she caters to a pretty wide audience of people. Her stream basically caters to white knights, people who like defending girls on the internet. Her stream caters to thirsty virgins, people who are just like, oh yeah, titties, like them titties. Her stream caters to people who like to basically shit talk girls on the internet just because they get off from it somehow, I guess. Just like, oh yeah, making fun of this girl on the internet. Fuck this bitch. She caters to people who are just like, people who actually know what she's doing. And so she has a pretty big audience, all things considered. Like, she's very controversial. I'll put it at that. Now, she has a lot of, like, certain phrasing she uses in her stream, which is, like, for example, she calls League of Legends, what is it, League of Legions? She acts kind of like, she doesn't act downright stupid, but she seems kind of ignorant to what's going on. Like when people are saying things in chat to her, and there'll be people criticizing her play, obviously, like, oh, you missed all that CS, or wow, why are you missing all that CS on purpose? You suck. And then she'll say something like, I'm not missing on purpose, I'm really trying as hard as I can. And, you know, things like that. Now, she did do an AMA on Reddit, and it was actually very real. Like, it was more her than her character, pretty much. So, if you actually want to know what she's like, read her AMA. Otherwise, if you just watch her stream, you might not understand what's going on completely. And some of you might. It took me it took me a few days of like glancing at it now and then to pick up on what she was doing. And I gotta say, like, she's really good at what she does. She is definitely a professional, even though she comes from a background where she has no real, I don't know, training or anything like that. No, she does good work. Her stream is pretty fun if you want some, like, if you want to, it's more entertaining to see everyone else basically throw hate at her than if she would just stream normally.
And the funny thing about that in general, as to what Novasight said, as he was describing her, he was referring to her character. Now, when you think character, what do you immediately think? Like a show? Some made-up thing? Well, that's actually entirely it. She's playing a character, and one could argue that and say that she's trolling. That's basically what I assumed at first anyway, is that she was trolling. And it's quite entertaining to listen to her ramble on about the random things that comes to mind. Especially playing the games and people interacting with her and contacting her and such while she's streaming. And it's rather entertaining all around, to be honest.
Yep. So, her stream was pretty enjoyable if you like watching a girl pretty much argue with random people who are donating at her. There's a lot more to it than that, but I don't want to spoil it too much because too many people catch on and it might not be as good. And then again, not many people are going to be listening to this, so, and some of you might not even believe what's being said here. But anyways, it's up to everyone else to interpret it. I recommend watching the stream just for the entertainment factor.
Oh yeah. You won't believe it till you see it, but if you start kind of... Really, it takes a helping hand to understand what's going on, to be honest. Basically what we're giving you guys right here is almost the cat out of the bag, but it's definitely something that's very much entertaining to listen to and watch, especially once you understand where she's coming from.
Yeah, and if you really want to spoil it for yourself, just find her Reddit account or her AMA on the League of Legends section. It's pretty informative, and to the people who already know what her stream's all about, but don't know what she's about, check it out, because she's pretty good. Oh, anything to add to that?
Not quite. Yeah, then I don't really have that much to speak about neither, other than LOL, she's a troll, cat's out of the bag, but yeah.
No, don't call her a troll. She doesn't want to be called a troll. She's a satirist.
Okay, she's a satirist. She's a damn good satirist. So I definitely recommended watching her stream. Fucking entertaining.
Yeah, just look at chat when she's streaming. It's pretty beautiful.
That's all I gotta say. Just freaking watch it. Like, come on. You gotta see this crap.
Alright. Anyways, that's enough for that topic for this time around. We go off on a little tangent here. So, the roster changes for next season are starting to come through slowly. Now, I won't really get into it, but so far there's changes to Curse, changes to Curse Academy, the amateur team. There's lots of coach changes between a few different teams. And there's some, I don't know, there's a lot of changes in Korea as well, in China and Europe. But we'll go over that when more of it's gone through, because it's just the tip of the iceberg so far. Let's just say I'm looking forward to all the stuff that's going to be happening within the next few months.
Oh yeah.
Including the fact the preseason's coming up where they're going to start changing the game again. I know how much you hate change, Sven.
I don't mind change.
Really? Every time you complain about something's changed, I hate this, it changed, it's different.
What have I done that?
A few times, like when they change something on a champ or nerf it, you're just like, oh, well, can't play this now.
I don't like it because I picked it assuming it was still the way I was going to play it as. to get a feel for it as it was, and all of a sudden, well, I didn't see the patch notes, even though it was like 3 patches ago, and I didn't notice it. So I almost feel like before I play a champion, I should just look at nerfs and shit.
I think there's a wiki with all the champions, and it will show all like the changes over the years, basically, like every patch where there's been a change on them, it will show.
That would be useful.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking there's a site like that somewhere. I'll have to find it. But yeah, so there's gonna be a lot of changes coming up, and including that is gonna be our next topic, the Summoner's Rift update.
Oh yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah, so Summoner's Rift, obviously, if you're listening, you've probably played the game. If you haven't played the game, well, play the damn game. But the Summoner's Rift map was pretty bright. It didn't look bad considering what it is, but it could always be better. And so the Summoner's Rift update is going to make it, well, in my opinion, it is better. Some people might find it worse because it seems darker, even though it shouldn't be. After we do some lighting passes, it'll be more. The textures will be nicer, and it'll look more streamlined. It'll probably be easier to navigate after learning. You'll probably have to relearn the map a bit, even though the shape's pretty much the same. But yeah, so they're changing pretty much every single aspect of the map except like basic brushes and the shape. So they have all these little things, like the big thing is the nexuses and inhibitors look completely different. They're like there's like crystals with like more of a, I don't know, circle, kind of weird design to them. The map also shows that the summoners are like, I think the idea of summoners have been removed from the map. So there's not a bunch of guys hovering over the nexus.
Yeah. That's something that's gonna kind of bug me a little on that aspect.
One of the neat new things that I see right away is the inhibs have respawn timers on them. They have a visual indicator on the inhibs themselves.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be cool.
So when they're down, you can see this little thing that will pretty much go around the inhib, and when it's full, the inhib will pop back up. Whereas most people will just be like, okay, I gotta remember that the inhib comes up in 5 minutes. But now you have a visual indicator showing you that it's gonna be up when it's up.
Yeah, so should make, for the most part, understanding when inhibs are coming up a lot better. Rather than kind of just going into it, pushing into the base, and all of a sudden, oh, inhib's up. Well, I don't have a timer. So it should be good. It looks like when you kind of look at it, for it being down or up, it's got kind of an illumination sort of thing, but like a loading bar. So I think it'll either fully light up when it's or it goes from like nothing to fully lit up when it's on its way, or I'm not sure how it might be after it's been destroyed, it's fully lit up, but then it'll go to having no light around it. I don't know. There's 2 possible ways. I suppose the first way sounds actually a little more aesthetically pleasing. It's kind of charging up. But for the most part, the map itself just looks bloody beautiful. And I kind of think that when they're designing this and keeping it up, I almost think it was kind of like an answer to Dota 2 on an aspect. Because, well, Summoner's Rift as is right now is, well, rather all cartoony. Then you got Dota 2, which the map is rather nice looking, it's textured, it's got very artistic feel to it. So you're kind of running around on something that is rather pleasing to look at. I'm not saying the normal Summoner's Rift map isn't pleasing to look at, but it's not as epic looking as it could be. So this update is definitely making it look a lot better.
Yeah, so I sent you a video, Sven, and Like, I'm starting right off the bat. When the champion loads in, there's this little, like, flash of light, and the champion just pops down like magic. It's pretty sweet. And the first thing I noticed is the shopkeepers are different. They're not just standing there with this little pile of stuff. Now they have this big creature that's packing all these items on him.
Yeah.
So he's like a traveling merchant almost, except he's stopped there in Summoner's Rift to sell items to the champions.
Which is pretty cool, because they also move around a bit too. They have their little animations for what they do. So he'll be up on his pack checking his stuff or something, and he'll hop down and go back to his little booth or table or whatever that's got the items and other stuff on it.
Yeah, so
kind of wiggles around and does stuff.
Yeah, so continuing from there, like as he leaves the base, you notice all the textures are very smooth. They look nice. They're still very easy to tell what's where. And the one thing I really like is how the fog of war is working out. It looks more like you're filling in something with like an ink blot that's slowly spreading out on the fog of war.
Yeah.
Instead of this like weird clunky looking fog of war fill. It looks smoother.
The whole thing looks a lot smoother.
Yeah, so it shows, yeah, the turrets are nicer looking, and
turrets are interesting. Looks like the blue side turrets have got like this kind of hammer sort of thing, where the red side turrets have got kind of a scepter, or purple, or whatever color mode you got.
I see what you mean. Actually, the minions for both sides are more visually distinct now.
Oh yeah.
Like the melee minions have their own thing. The blue ones have like, the red or purple ones have like the shield and mace, and the blue ones have like what is it? Oh, like a hammer, like more of a square-looking hammer.
Yeah.
So they're more visually distinct from each other, and the caster minions are kind of same-ish, but obviously the color distinction. Then there's the jungle creeps have changed like quite a bit. So, for example, the Wraith camp is now filled with these bird, fish-looking things. I don't know what you would call them. They're kind of weird looking. And the red camp has this like, I don't know, it's almost like it looks like a tree, sort of. Or some weird creature. But, they look more menacing. Like, the red buff and blue buff look a lot more menacing than they did. So that's cool.
Oh yeah. I like when you get close to them or you walk away from them or something, or respond to that.
Yeah. Yeah, they pretty much have a reaction to you, too. Like, there's animations for all of them. They're pretty much aware of your presence when you're in front of them.
Hopefully they don't give away if you're in the bush or not.
Well, I mean, they
Like-
could... What do you mean?
Like if you're in a bush, they can't see you.
No, that's not supposed to work like that. And like,
Okay.
there's those double golems now look more like weird rhinoceros things, and they're kind of like huddled up until you walk in front of them, and they just kind of pop out and shake at you.
Little threatening dances, as
Yeah.
if to say piss off.
And the cannon minions are really cool looking too. And then there's the big ones like Dragon. Dragon looks a lot crazier than the old one.
Oh yeah.
The old dragon looked like a punk. This dragon looks like he's gonna rip your head off and eat your entire family and their family. And
I still can't get over that animation aspect of it. Oh my god. Like, in this video, we're watching Nar walk around. He walks up into Dragon Pit, and the dragon, like, presents itself to him, basically, and it snarls at him. But then he starts walking out of the Dragon Pit. You'll notice the dragon's head actually turn and look towards him, as if to say, I'm watching you. That's so awesome. In comparison to what you're normally used to in Summer's Rift, where it's just a freaking dragon just flapping away, doing really nothing. This thing is actually... this whole map is just so interactive now. It's great.
yeah, so the map seems more alive, which is really cool. And then this video shows the red side as well. But, yeah, the map looks really fucking good. But there's like a lot more aspects to it that haven't even been implemented. And oh, I missed something. Yeah, even the small creeps look a lot cooler. Like the wolves are like crazy looking.
Looks they're gonna bite your face off.
The
Very nice touch.
blue buff looks like this like stone monolith thing with these two little floating stones by it, and he just like when you get near him, he just pops out and flexes at you.
Bust a move.
White's been replaced by this weird frog-looking guy, which is kind of interesting. He like puffs up his chin at you.
As if to say, "Hey, come punch this."
Yeah. But I mean, they're supposed to have like different designations now for the champion or the jungle camps, like different names for them. Like I think what I heard at least is that the wraiths are those little bird things now. They're called like razor beaks or something. And there's all these little like critters like just hiding in the terrain of the map too, just peeking out at you.
Kind of like that kind of like the Halloween map where randomly a little ghost would like pop out of nowhere, just aesthetically. It wouldn't really do anything. Well, unless you're Warwick playing with the what skin was that? Earth skin, yeah. They go to like the top left of the map by that tombstone and it pops out and shakes a fist at you pretty much. Aesthetically, yeah. Just little bits and pieces, and it's very artistically chiseled. Like, you take a look at even like some of the stones you walk by, rather than just boring trees and other crap here. There's like these stone statues when you're going into the forest. These stone statues that represent the walling in between. They got like this blue glow to them, the symbols in them. Even like look at the ground for the basin itself. It's got like a bunch of kind of pathings to it. Like it's designed very nicely. It's got some like runic looking text designating which sides the minions spawn from the Nexus. And on top of that, it looks also very battle torn too, which is another nice little accent they added to this. But also rather old. It looks rather old and ancient looking, because you can see moss and flowers and that protruding through the stone pathing, as well as dirt or some such, like a bunch of battles that happened there long ago. So it's got a very historic look to it at the same time as very aesthetically pleasing. I very much like this map.
Yeah, so they also add some neat little things like the water in the river now ripples when you walk through it, which wasn't a thing in the original Summoner's Rift. Apparently this map's supposed to make pathing a lot better too. So if you've ever had any problems where you'd click somewhere and your champion would do something you didn't want because of pathing, this should fix a lot of that, because the map's more smooth on the edges as well and easier to read.
Yeah.
And there's some changes to there's changes to the names of the critters, and there's changes to the abilities of Dragon and Baron, but we'll talk about that in the next part, because there's a lot to talk about regarding those, and there's a point I have to make in the next one regarding the fact that as someone who's been playing since Season 1, all these changes are gonna they're going to be really hard to take in such a way, because I'm so used to certain things being a certain way after all these seasons. But I'll kind of get more into that regarding basically the changes of the names more than anything.
More or less, one thing I like about this map is the fact that the changes within the map. There's quite a lot as far as actually running it goes in comparison to the old Summoner's Rift map, the one that we're currently seeing as of this video. And they they didn't really go into detail on it as to what they did, but basically they promised higher frame rates for it, and at the same time better handling on the map. So there's less kind of frame spikes and such. So they're probably using, I'm going to imagine, newer technologies and within the map itself to successfully achieve this. Better programming, I assume, also better programming, which is actually quite nice because a lot of people tend to have certain problems with the map in itself, like random lag spikes and such. I get typically I roof and stay roofed at 60 FPS, but sometimes every now and then there's some little hitch that happens that knocks me down to 20 or 30 occasionally, very, very rarely, but it still happens. Apparently the new programming for the map itself is going to fix that. So, as far as handling on the map goes, you'll find it a lot more smooth play when you're actually on the map itself, as that's what they are promising anyway, is easier handling, especially on older computers, which should be nice for those who aren't playing on super rigs, or especially on just laptops, for example. It should run very nicely on those too.
Yeah, I actually have a comment about that. I had a friend who played League for a little bit, and he had a problem with how poorly the Summer's Rift map ran. And I was like, oh, well, that's not too good. But then, I guess after a while, he ended up switching to Dota 2. And Dota 2 is a newer game. And the texturing of the map in Dota 2 is better. So, but that being said, he was able to run it a lot better, even though it was more graphically advanced at that point in time. That was a year and a half ago. So yeah, that was big thing about Summer's Rift. For some reason, computers couldn't run it that well, including one of my friends. So he ended up having to switch to Dota 2 simply because of that. He liked the idea of playing League, but it was just so laggy. So hopefully it fixes stuff like that for people like him. And if they can do that, they'll probably actually be able to accumulate more players.
Oh yeah. Will definitely help on that aspect.
But that's enough about Summer's Rift for this week. Next week we'll be talking about more intricate details like the names of the camps and the changes to Dragon and Baron. And yeah. So our next topic is meta, and it's niche picks, or as Sven likes to call some of them, bullshit freeload tactics, like picking Tryndamere. So
not all niche picks I think are freeload, but we'll go into that in a bit.
So basically a niche pick is something that's kind of off meta because it's not an all-encompassing thing. Let's say there's somebody who likes to play Singe or whatnot. That's a very niche thing this season. You don't see Singe very often. And niche picks can be pretty good because people aren't always expecting you to pick that particular thing and actually do well with it. It's oh, he just picked this champion. That champion sucks. But in reality, he's played this champion hundreds of times, which is what we covered earlier about repetition. So he knows how to play that champion damn well, and he stomps your face with it. So there's a lot of champions in the game right now that I would consider niche picks. For example, Singed. We can also use champions Teemo. He's pretty niche in his own sick, sadistic way. Tryndamere, Quinn, stuff like that. So, like I said in the first episode of the show, I don't really care what you play and where you play it. If you perform with it, that's fine. If you don't, then I'll be pretty upset with you because you could have just picked something that was more regulated in the meta, which was easier to, use, easier to play in solo queue. So if you played a lot of a certain champion, for example, there's this player named Inverted Composer who played Singed top pretty much all the time, like non-stop, endlessly, and he came up with all these like crazy little tactics like proxying and all that stuff with Singed. And it worked for him really well, and he got really good at it. And then they changed some stuff regarding Singed, and it wasn't as easy, but he still has that advantage of knowing how to play the champion, and Singed is a very niche thing. So then, it's really good in solo queue, because you can basically pull out a champion that no one's expecting, and if you're really good at it, they don't know what to do about it, because they don't see the champion very often, so they don't know the matchup, and that can be pretty advantageous for you.
So niche picks generally come with skill when it comes to picking them. Not necessarily going, oh, I like this champion, I'm going to play it right now. Well, it's not part of the meta. Especially when you don't have that much playtime on them. So it generally is a requirement with all niche champions, is you got to have some sort of playtime on them if you're going to take them to ranked.
Yeah, so there's kind of this misconception about some champions, though. Like, there'll be people like, oh, wow, that champion's so fucking ridiculous. Why would you pick that? It's such an easy mode champ. And it's like a champ that doesn't get played very often, and they're only complaining about it because they're not experienced in fighting it enough. Like, I know Sven has troubles with Tryndamirs. Oh, I shouldn't reveal that. People might use the Ace of solo queue.
I don't have troubles with Tryndamirs. What I have troubles with is people feeding Tryndamirs.
Well,
Give me Kog'Maw and I'll eat Tryndamir alive, but if he's fed, he's just going to spin up to me and crit me for 1,000 damage and then run away like it's nothing.
well, I don't know. Every champion there's some way of dealing with it, no matter what people seem like to believe. Like, people will be like, oh, it's Shaco. Man, that champion's so bullshit. All he has to do is jump he has a free blink over walls, and he can go invisible, and this and that. Well, I can think of like 3 things offhand right away. First of all, when he does his blink animation, he has the red puff of where he was when he did it. Second of all, if you buy a pink fucking ward, there he is, right in front of you anyways. Like, oh, there's Shaco, because my pink ward was there. You know, ward. Remember warding? Yeah, do that. So
very useful.
Yeah, so another thing is like, a champion like Shaco, for example, he's pretty easy to crowd control. He doesn't really have any CC breaks, he's not super tanky or anything. He's pretty damn easy to kill, aside from the fact that he does have a free blink. But still, he's not that tough to deal with. Same with champions like Eve, champions like Twitch, people who can go invisible, and champions that have like basically revival animations like Aatrox and Yorick and whatnot. Like, there's easier ways to deal with that stuff. Or even Tryndamir, who can go invincible temporarily. All you have to do is CC them, and then they can't do anything for that duration. If you can get the CC on them like nicely, they can't do anything for the entire time, and they just flop over dead, and that's the end of it.
For the most part, there are tactics to deal with certain niche champions, or what are considered niche champions, but when it comes to actually being able to deal with them, I can kind of understand where some people are coming from when they look at it and go, well, what the hell? How am I supposed to deal with them when I don't constantly play against them? And that's definitely a valid point. But when you think about it realistically, you kind of just take it and you process who you're up against and you think about what they do. And generally you'll find an answer of how to deal with them when you think about what they do. Because there's never anything too complicated about each champion. I mean, they certainly have some skills to them that can get intricate, but they have some skills to them that allow them to do some intricate things, but the skills themselves aren't all that intricate in itself. So you could use that to your advantage, which is rather useful.
Yeah, that's the thing. Especially about niche picks. If you can learn the ins and outs of a champion, even one that's not played very often, you'll have a huge advantage over someone because I know all these little tricks about this champion that you don't. Like, for example, I can come up with, like, Wukong. If you basically turn your character left as you're doing your clone, it won't look like you did anything at all. And then you can pretty much get away with doing it. It's like a little... Because when you do the clone thing, it kind of faces leftwards of which way you were clicking in the first place. So you can kind of make it in such a way it looks like you were just turning and you stopped. And it's really hard to tell. And there's other things, like Shaco players, for example, they, instead of just using your ult and walking it up to the turret and blowing him up like most people like to do, which is really dumb, actually like use the clone and along with you and do things like attack with your clone, attack with yourself, do your blank onto the side of them and attack them there, and they get all like, you know, screwed up. Or you can even use it where you use your Shaco clone and then you go invisible and they're attacking the clone because they think it's you, and then you just pop up and stab them in the back. There's lots more to lots of the champions. Even little things like their attack animations, like say there's like a way to cancel your auto attack into doing a skill. That's all because you learned this champion enough. And all these little things work together.
What else to add to that? As far as it goes, I don't really think I have anything else to add to that. Niche champions are just that, niche champions. They're difficult to use and sometimes, well, not necessarily difficult to use, but sometimes difficult to play correctly. Or not really correctly, but to play well. It requires some sort of understanding of the champion in order to actually succeed with them, but at the same time, it's got kind of a high, medium skill cap to it. You need to actually be a certain level of skill with that champion in order to bring it into a specific meta, or else you'll basically be fodder for the enemy team. So if you're good with a niche champion that doesn't fit the meta, and you bring it into ranked, you may have success with it, but don't overstep your bounds when it comes to using them, because that's when you'll start making the mistake of trying to take it into a place that doesn't help.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it for niche picks. It's very based on what you want to do in the game. So, I mean, there's people who play one champion only forever, so they know so much about this champion that it's unreal. Like, those people who played Nidalee only, or Vlad only, or only Singed, or only Jax, only Rengar, etc. They've played the champion so many times and they know all these neat little tricks about them. And whether or not they become meta or not, they still have this advantage over people. But that's about all there is to it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go over the topics again. In mechanics one we had positioning, which is basically, you know, you gotta be in the right place, in the right situation, and don't make any stupid mistakes or you're gonna end up costing your team fights. And I'll probably do some coaching videos in the future to try and teach little things like positioning and anything that's useful to succeeding in the game. Next there is Behaviour, which is repetition. League of Legends is a very repetition-based game. You gotta repeat to learn. The more you do something, the easier it becomes. And for our community topic, we have KaceyTron. Just watch her stream. She's pretty interesting. The game itself, we have the Summoner's Rift update. We did cover only a small portion of what this update entails. It's going to be really pretty. They changed a lot of animations for things. They changed textures. They changed Fog of War. They changed the names of creatures, which we'll be covering next time. And no, everything's very different, but it's still familiar. And our meta topic is niche picks. So people who like to play those champions that are off the meta, but are super good at them because they know how to fit them in, and they know what to do with them. So, that was it for episode 3 of the Armchair League. As always, I'm your host Novasight.
I'm AspariOne.
Thanks for watching.
See you guys later.